Back-to-back weekends, we make our way to the Temple of Speed, one of two tracks that gets specific upgrades every single season. Now, the other track was Monaco, which is the complete opposite, and they got upgrades more mechanically than aerodynamically, which we will see here at Monza. It's one of those tracks that's been around forever. We always enjoy a race here, and it seems to be entertaining every single time as well. But the beautiful part of Monza being a little bit later in the year is we actually see these rear wings now before we even get to the Italian GP. So I wanted to talk about all that, seeing these track specific parts already, how these teams are going to do here, and the upgrades that should be expected at the Monza GP. If you do want an upgrade to your wardrobe, check out UnchainedMediaInc.com. Put a lot of effort into these. Thank you everybody that has ordered so far. Means the world to me. You know I wouldn't do you wrong, so give it a go. But if you're new here, also go ahead and subscribe, would mean the world. Let's get started. Let's talk about these teams. We'll make our way from the bottom towards the top for this video. As I stated, we've seen on about 7 to 8 teams already these rear wings that should be expected from Monza unless they literally go for no rear wing. Because the first team we're looking at is the slowest car in the grid. Now, they had an okay Zandvoort because of those safety cars and still didn't get a point. But what we ended up seeing in Belgium, which is just insanity on this car, is that dinner plate of a rear wing. Super flat. The DRS is practically doing nothing here, maybe shredding a little bit of drag. But this car and its power deficiency is already bad, so there's no performance upgrades coming, but that will be the track specific part we see on the Alpine car. Now we're making our way to a team that just got a podium. I mean, with Hajar right now, he's got to be very careful. He's very close and probably on the brink of a demotion going to Red Bull.
Spotter. So, oh, for fuck's sake.
David?
Yeah, hiya.
I mean, this Racing Bulls car is phenomenal. Its balance is tremendous. It doesn't really matter what track you put it on. Now, they have their days. Don't get me wrong. It's by far not the best car on the grid. And then we have Fernando in interviews saying if Max was put in the car, he'd be fighting for the championship. I don't believe that. He's obviously exaggerating it. But if you look at the difference between the Racing Bulls car and the Red Bull car, especially in balance and how the car feels for these drivers, when Liam was driving the Red Bull car, it seemed like he had no sense of confidence at all while driving it. And the first day they chucked him in that Racing Bulls car after the Red Bull stint, which lasted a full 2 GPs, he was automatically a little bit better. He wasn't up to speed with Isaac, but clearly this kid is talented. And enough of me talking about Isaac and really glazing the Racing Bulls car. The actual rear wing we should be seeing here, it's not exactly what I think we saw in Belgium. I think they're going to chop it down even more. They had a little bit of downforce because of the expected rain there. And this was one of those weekends where Isaac was horribly off the pace, but I did hear he had a floor issue in this GP. This is a car that typically isn't great and a bit draggy, which is one of its biggest issues. So I do expect a bit of a skinnier wing, and in this case, it would be a performance upgrade for the car going into Monza. Now looking at Haas, we had 2 completely different rear wings for Belgium. As I said, there was rain there. I don't think it's expected in Italy. Typically, teams will go with the lowest amount of downforce possible here. But with Haas, just like we saw in the Alpine, it is flat as a board. And when the DRS plane opened, I thought we were just looking at a straight line of a rear wing. It didn't even look like it was open at some points from certain angles. Now, Ocon ended up using it. He was flying in Belgium. This is a car that's not very draggy, especially with a wing like that. So don't count Haas out. There are certain tracks that they're not great at. I still haven't seen a front wing that's been a bit chopped off. I expect that as well for the Haas car. Now the same goes for AMR. They had a different rear wing in Silverstone that wasn't as flatlined as the rear wing they had in Belgium. Now you can see the differences clearly here from Silverstone to the Spa GP. They ended up adding that middle dip in the bottom spoon, just like McLaren has it, and it's been a trend throughout really the whole grid. And there were hints of this being an Adrian Newey upgrade. That middle part in the bottom spoon is just supposed to shred the drag much easier and have little losses towards the rear part of the car in simple terms. But they also ended up introducing a low downforce front wing. Now, we didn't just see this in Spa, this was also introduced in Miami, but the wing that they ultimately didn't actually end up using in Spa due to it being rain, they tried going with the Silverstone wing, didn't work out, same with front and for the rear. They even had an older spec floor on the car at some point, and from what I've heard in Zandvoort, it was Alonso running the Silverstone floor and Lance running the previous Imola floor for that GP. Their performance was pretty close. I do think Alonso was much quicker throughout the weekend. Lance got the benefiting strategy. And I wonder what floor they might go for. Which one gives them less drag? I would assume it's the Silverstone one, considering when they brought it and when they put it on. I do think the British GP was decent, so expect that floor kitted onto the car. And for the track-specific stuff, looking at the Belgian wing, I would expect that, with also that cutout, a bit chopped down front wing for the AMR. I don't expect this to be a very strong GP for them. I actually think Haas will be quicker. Now, Red Bull has also gotten a lot of looks at this rear wing because when it was introduced, they ended up using it in Silverstone, and that is how Max got himself onto that pole position, but it ended up costing him big time in the race. With some rain, the car was completely out of its normal balance because it didn't have much rear grip at all. But this will be the wing we end up seeing at Monza because it's chopped down, it shreds as much drag as possible towards the rear of the car, and we have seen them introduce a couple of front wing stuff. They keep modifying it. They had a more high downforce front wing in Hungary. In Zandvoort, they ended up using the same. I expect to see the low, more chopped down front wing yet again in Monza. And supposedly, Marco says there's still a couple of upgrades in the pipeline. I'm not sure if we're going to see it here in Monza. I'm more expecting Coda in the future. I also don't really know how I feel about this track in particular for Red Bull. Some parts of me say it's going to be okay, and then there's another part of me saying they're going to be somewhere fighting P7, P8 like it was in 2024. Now, Mercedes is one of those rare teams that didn't introduce quite that low of a downforce rear wing in Belgium, so I expect to see something here in Monza unless they want to be towards the back. Now, I'm not saying this wasn't low downforce, it clearly is, but not anything to level of anybody else. Maybe they try the Red Bull strategy in 2023. There was a rear wing that they kept bringing back, and we even saw it in 25 in Jeddah at some point. It was a wing they had in 23. That was very low downforce, so it's possible we see something like that. I also think this is a track that, like Red Bull, shouldn't be as good. I actually expect Ferrari and McLaren to be stronger on this track. They do have the straight line speed typically. The McLaren car is draggy, but it's also ultimately the fastest car in a rocket ship, so it doesn't necessarily need to be shredding as much drag as these other cars to be somewhat competitive. And that's mainly to do with tire wear and that mechanical platform being a beast. But with that being said, talking about the Papaya team, I usually say orange, but whatever, let's go with what they call it. We've seen the wing at Belgium. They were extremely strong there. We saw the performance they were able to extract. I expect the same in Monza. It's hard to count this team out ever out of a 1-2. This is a track that I do believe Ferrari can fight them on though. Even with Zandvoort not being great, it's a complete opposite. If it's any track you want to bet on Ferrari winning for the rest of the year, it's probably this one. And actually, at the Belgium GP, we didn't see the front or rear wing for Monza, but they did end up testing that front wing and rear wing in a 2026 test at Hungary. Now, that's a track that you definitely do not want to wing as low as that on, and same with the front, but this was a 2026 mule car that they were testing out for obviously the next set of regulations, so it was allowed by the FIA themselves to use this set. I expect to see this front wing and rear wing at Monza, and typically Ferrari will bring a couple of more things to shred as much drag as possible, put on a performance. I mean, unfortunately, Lewis Hamilton will be starting 5 grid places behind wherever he qualifies. I believe this to be one of Charles Leclerc's best tracks. He always performs here. I think he loves the Tifosi being behind him, adds like a tenth or two to himself. And somehow, even not having the best car in most of these years, maybe in 2019 he had the best car because that engine was pretty damn illegal, but he definitely didn't have the best car in 24 and still made it work. So you can never count a guy out. That's like they're going to have. That's going to be their performance upgrades as well. And like I said, expect a few more things that I will cover in my Thursday video. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm excited for Monza, Temple of Speed. It's always fun to see these cars fly. For 26, they should be even quicker here, depending on a couple of things, like the amount of energy they can use, whether it'll be deemed safe or not. We'll have to see. Regardless, Love to hear your thoughts on the comments below. What do you guys believe? Who will be strongest? What do you guys think of the upgrades and really the rear wings we're going to be seeing? Please leave a like, subscribe. It'd mean the world, and peace.